Welcome to Tekedia Daily. I'm Ndubuisi Ekekwe. Our conversation today will focus on building resilient startups. And I'll be using an experience of just what happened about 2 days ago, specifically when my blog, Tekedia, crashed. Essentially, we had a very, very popular post that was well received, and thousands of people wanted to have access to this content. And just like that, the, the blog gave up. We're very lucky that this is not one of our products like Zemvos, FA Cyber, Melonix, and other services and solutions that we offer to the general public. Of course, those solutions, we always host them in a very kind of different type of server, not necessarily the type that we put at Tekedia. But nevertheless, I have something to share from this experience. And it is something that every startup has to consider. Let not your success begin to actually become the tipping point for destroying your company. Sometimes we are not prepared to get into success. And when that success comes, we don't know how to manage it. So you are having 2,000 visitors on your site. All of a sudden, you are seeing more than 20,000 people within an hour. And suddenly, you have not prepared yourself to accommodate that capacity. And just like that, you leave behind a very bad customer experience, and which, if you do not manage very well, will actually create a very big systemic risk. So in our own case, it's just a blog. Of course, it went offline. And when it went offline, we have now to move the content from one hosting company in the United States to another one. And this process usually it takes between 24 to 48 hours. And within that time horizon, we couldn't do anything because the company we hosted said we could not even upgrade. So we only had to move. That was a very big risk. I never paid attention to it because it was just a blog. So I recall vividly when I was in university, in Federal University of Technology, where I read a book called Art of Electronics by W. Hill. This book explained a scenario where one company he made a very great product and then sold that product through different distributors. Then few months later, people wanted to order that particular product. Unfortunately, the schematic diagram upon which the electronic solution was actually built, the company didn't know where it was. And because they couldn't really figure out where it was, and orders were everywhere, the company had to go into bankruptcy. So their own weak link was somebody did not even take into consideration the most important, I will call it, element in that company. And also, a few months ago, Kenyan banks were actually having problems. Some startups had their accounts, and their funds trapped for a few hours and few days in some of these banks. It tells us that, hey, even though the regulators will promise us that our money will be safe in any bank in our different countries in Africa, nevertheless, it's also very, very catalytic that you have to consider that if you do not have access to that fund within maybe 2 weeks, the impact it will have on your business. So managing risk is key. This is a minute black swan. It's something you've not anticipated, but most times they do come. And it's always rare, but it comes. So we dealt on our own issue. We manage our own issue. And it's like, oh, when the site begins to grow, we get there. Unfortunately, it happened at a time when we were not prepared. I want to tell you something. You have to understand every element of your risk. And you also have this mindset that you don't have to go into any assumption. Growth will come, but it's also important for you to simulate growth. You have to plan ahead and you have to examine the partner risk and understand the product they are selling to you. I ask you to take next week, evaluate your partner risk. We just realized that the company we were hosting with never really anticipated, perhaps, that our blog will actually be very, very popular. So when the blog was showing a sign of life, we figured out quickly that we didn't even have a product. I tell you to take action. It's not just a blog, of course. There are other important things about your products, your core solution in the market. Evaluate that risk, because building a resilient startup is very, very critical. I've always thought about these issues because where I put my product like Zenvos FA Cyber, I know we take a lot of efforts to make sure we use the right company as a partner. But this Tekedia blogging thing is also something I can extrapolate the challenges people face when you do not plan those things. I don't want you to be like us. We method under our sources, and it's a very bad thing. You need to learn so that you don't have that kind of experience. Watch Tekedia daily.